The anime starts off in a dungeon, where our hero Ryota suddenly awakens, startling a girl who was examining him. She questions whether he is truly human, wondering why a slime would drop a human, given that they usually only release bean sprouts. The boy is puzzled by her words. The girl introduces herself as Emily and decides to demonstrate what she means by engaging another slime. It strikes her, depleting half her HP, but she crushes it with her colossal hammer. As the slime vanishes, it leaves behind a bunch of bean sprouts, leaving Ryota confused. Emily explains they find themselves on the first floor of a dungeon called Tellulu, where slimes always drop bean sprouts. In fact, everything in this world is a monster drop. They continue through the maze, and Ryota wonders if he is still on Earth. Emily eliminates another slime, prompting Ryota to question why she doesn't engage other monsters. Emily informs him that only slimes appear on the first level, and she is too weak to venture to level 2. She takes him to a status board, which she explains can display his stats. We observe she is only level 3, and her stats seem quite mediocre. Ryota likens it to a video game and notices there's a second page. Emily clarifies it shows her drop status, determining the number of drops she can obtain from certain item types. We see all her drop stats are at F rank, but her drops for plants are higher at E rank, which is why she is farming bean sprouts. Ryota decides to check his stats, but he becomes disheartened when he sees all his stats at F, and his level remains stuck at level 1. He checks his second page, and we see all his drop stats are at S. Emily believes his stats are dreadful since S comes after so many other letters in the alphabet. But Ryota believes S is usually the highest in games, so he decides to test it out. He searches for a weapon, and Emily offers him her hammer, but it's too heavy for him, so Emily gives him a bamboo spear instead. A slime approaches them, and Ryota struggles against it, but he eventually manages to defeat it. The slime releases a vast amount of bean sprouts, and Emily can't believe it, having never seen such a significant drop, confirming Ryota's suspicions. Ryota's stomach suddenly rumbles, and Emily decides to prepare some food for him. Emily cooks some of the bean sprouts they gathered. Ryota finds her food to be delicious, and he devours it eagerly. He presents him with a cup of soup to taste, but she's surprised when he starts to tear up. She considers that it might be the soup, but Ryota assures her it was good and that he was simply reminiscing about his past life. He recalls how he used to work tirelessly, only eating cold convenience store food, until eventually, he exhausted himself so much, and the last thing he remembered was waking up there. Emily embraces him, consoling him by saying that all his efforts will eventually pay off. Ryota expresses his gratitude and believes he should find a place to stay, so Emily tells him about the town where he can find lodging. Ryota discovers that Emily sleeps in the dungeon since she couldn't afford a place of her own, but she allows him to keep the bamboo spear as he departs. Ryota arrives at the town and learns more about the world, discovering that their currency is called pylos, and he manages to sell his bean sprouts for 200 pylos. He finds out that an average meal costs around 500 pylos, and the lodging would be 2,000 for a night. He starts eliminating slimes in the dungeon, exchanging all his bean sprouts for money, and after 3 days, he brings Emily to a house he rented. The house is a bit rundown, but Ryota hands Emily the keys, saying it's for her to live in. Mary costs 20,000 pylos a month, and Emily starts to panic, but Ryota assures her, saying he will cover all of the rent. Emily can't accept such a gesture, but Ryota says it's to thank her for the soup she made him. Emily observes the blisters on his hand and the bags under his eyes, and she ends up inviting him to stay with her, eager to continue preparing meals for him. Ryota goes to exchange his bean sprouts at the swallow's gratitude, and the girl at the counter is astonished by the large amount he brings. Ryota informs her of his plan to venture to level 2 for better drops, and she mentions that monsters on level 2 drop carrots. She talks about a new dungeon called Nahonium that has emerged, and the Neptune group, the most dominant group in Sekiro, is investigating it. As Ryota departs, Urza attempts to ask him out, but he declines her offer. Ryota returns home, amazed to find it immaculate. Emily offers him a warm towel and a cup of tea. He encourages her to take a break, but she insists that she enjoys the work. He mentions nahonium to her, but Emily says she heard it was pointless as it has no drops. Ryota decides to investigate the dungeon himself. He traverses the cavernous area, and a skeleton appears. It attacks him but misses, striking a column beside him and crushing it. Ryota strikes back, but his spear gets stuck in the skeleton's ribs. Fortunately, a column behind the skeleton collapses on top of it, and Ryota repeatedly stabs it while it's pinned. The skeleton drops a glowing seed, and as Ryota picks it up, he hears a voice informing him that his max HP has increased. Ryota and Emily check the status board and are astonished to see his HP has leveled up to C rank. Emily is thrilled by this, and Ryota sets off to vanquish more skeletons. He brings Emily along, and they discover that Emily's kills don't drop any seeds. She also can't pick up seeds from Ryota's kills, so Ryota concludes that nahonium must be a stat-increasing dungeon that's only accessible to S ranks. Back home, during a meal, Ryota tells Emily about his plan to go to level 2 of Telulu. Emily gets worried and tells him not to be reckless, so he promises he will return by nightfall. In the dungeon, Ryota battles a slime on level 2. The slime strikes him, but he barely takes any damage, thanks to his new S-ranked HP stat. He eventually defeats the slime, and it drops a huge carrot. Another slime approaches him, but before it can attack him, it's killed by a fireball. It also drops a carrot, but it's smaller than Ryota's. 3 men emerge from around the corner to collect the carrot. The 3 mock him, and they scan him with a device, seeing he's only level 1, so they laugh and leave. Ryota is left irritated when suddenly, a girl appears behind him. She has a peculiar outfit, and we see she has bunny ears. She asks Ryota if he's actually level 1, smacking him in the head and saying how she hates low levels. Ryota receives no damage, and the girl is shocked by this, so she just walks away confused. Back at home, Emily is amazed by the size of the carrots. Ryota tells her he got 8,000 pylos for them at the Swallow's Gratitude, and he thinks he's going to be rich. There's a knock at the door, and Ryota finds the girl from before. The girl strikes him in the head again, repeating that she detests low levels. Seeing no reaction from him, she starts behaving oddly and confesses her love for him. Emily inquires about the girl's identity. The girl hits Ryota's head, but he remains unfazed. She pulls a bystander to their door and does the same to him, immediately rendering him unconscious. She questions why it didn't happen to Ryota, and he believes it's probably due to his S-rank HP. He asks her why she came, and she reveals a large carrot from her dress. Ryota recalls dropping a carrot when they left the dungeon, and the girl swiftly took it as soon as it fell. She tells Ryota she wants more and becomes excited when she sees all the carrots in the house. Emily invites her to eat with them, and she demonstrates how to make carrot noodles with carrot sauce and soup. The girl drools at the sight of the delicious food, and the 3 of them sit down to eat. The girl praises Emily's cooking skill as they finish the food, and she departs immediately after. Ryota cautiously navigates the 2nd level of nahonium, determined to grow stronger when suddenly a zombie appears. Ryota valiantly attacks it but ends up breaking his bamboo spear. Ryota uses his punches and kicks to defeat the zombie, and he collects the seed it dropped. The strange voice tells him that his strength has increased by 1. At that moment, Ryota is startled by another voice. He looks up to see that the girl has been observing him all this time. She jumps down, smacking him on the head and inquiring about the drop. Ryota doesn't want her to know that his drop rank is S, so he decides not to tell her. She asks if he has any carrots, and he tells her he doesn't. She expresses her desire to go to Telulu for more carrots, so Ryota advises her to wait at the Swallow's Gratitude, and she leaves. Ryota arrives at the Swallow's Gratitude with a ton of carrots in his hand. He strolls toward the girl while a crowd assembles around them. He presents her with a carrot, and the crowd gasps with amazement as the girl joyfully chomps on the carrot. Urza approaches Ryota and hastily offers to buy all his carrots for double the retail value. She reveals that the girl's name is Eve Callisleader, and she's a renowned adventurer. Her signature karate chop is known as Excalibur, capable of splitting a boulder in half. She's also an expert on carrots, so any carrot she approves of is bound to fetch a high price. Urza proposes 15,000 pylos for each carrot. Ryota is astonished and tries to thank Eve, but she simply asks for more carrots. He explains that he doesn't have any, so she attempts to hit him again, but he stops her hand. She asks for carrots once more, and Ryota promises to get her more tomorrow. This upsets her, and she eventually departs. On Telulu level 2, Ryota and Emily examine their haul. Ryota decides to explore the dungeon once again. He hears something around the corner, where he finds 2 adventurers struggling to defeat a slime. They become exhausted, and their captain approaches. They quickly pin the slime down as the old man finishes it off, collecting the carrot and instructing them to move on. His companions want to rest, but the old man scolds them for being weak and explains he's strict because he wants them to become stronger. They accompany their captain, and Ryota recollects how he had a manager in his past life who would overburden him and claim it was for his own good. Emily approaches Ryota with a lunch box, and they decide to take a break. They lay out their lunch when suddenly Eve dashes towards them, excited to eat Emily's food. They happily enjoy lunch as Ryota overhears someone talking. He spots the group from earlier, and the captain glares at them, instructing his companions never to be as lazy as them. He asserts that the quality of the drop depends on the effort put into obtaining it, but Eve jumps over to them, urging them to eat the carrots. She slices it in half and stuffs it into their mouths. They begin munching on it, as Eve tells the captain that the carrots are delicious even without hard work. The captain becomes irritated, preparing to attack, but Eve stops him, and the old man leaves with his companions. At the swallow's gratitude, Ryota informs Urza that they couldn't bring all of their items, and Urza suggests getting a magical cart to help him carry the items. They arrive at a shop, where a little girl greets them at the counter. She calls for her dad, and an old man emerges from the back. He recommends a magical cart with a monster detection system, and they show interest in buying it. But they are surprised to learn that it costs 10 million pylos. The other carts in the shop also cost millions of pylos, so they become disheartened and walk away without purchasing a cart. They suddenly hear a commotion as people yell about a stray. Emily explains that a stray is a monster that appears when drops are left where there aren't many people. Ryota looks up to see a giant gorilla rampaging through town, with several people running away, including adventurers. Emily tells him that strays don't have any drops, so adventurers avoid fighting them. Ryota hears a scream and sees Urza on the ground as the gorilla throws a punch at her. It intervenes, halting its fist, and Eva arrives with a group of adventurers to join the fight. Ryota informs Urza that he will handle the stray, and he charges at the gorilla. It's about to throw a boulder at him, but Emily smashes it with her hammer. The adventurers attack the gorilla's limbs as Ryota leaps forward, headbutting the gorilla before delivering the finishing blow. The bystanders applaud Ryota for rescuing the town, and he feels gratified to receive appreciation for the first time. He hears the chime from a drop, and they investigate it. They discover that it had dropped a pistol, and Ryota is astonished to find a weapon that shouldn't even exist in that world. Outside Nahonium, Ryota checks his status and notices that his strength has leveled up to S rank thanks to the seed drops. He enters Nahonium armed with the pistol, and he shoots at an incoming zombie. The first shot blows off its shoulder, and the second shot kills it. Ryota confirms that the gun works as multiple zombies approach him. He shoots at them, easily killing them, but he wonders how he will obtain more bullets, so he considers using them sparingly. At Telulu, a slime leaps at Emily, but Ryota shoots and kills it mid-air. She is delighted to see him, and they have lunch together. She admires his new weapon, and he informs her that he plans on exploring the next level. They realize that Eve didn't appear for lunch and assume she must be occupied. They enter the third level, and Emily knows that the creatures in the area are called beetles, and they drop pumpkins. They set out to find the beetles, and Ryota spots some scurrying on the walls. He notices that they are similar to cockroaches, and is disgusted by them. He hears a heavy slam as Emily strikes the floor with her hammer. She displays a creepy smile, saying she wants to exterminate all the beetles. Emily brutally kills one, and they collect a pumpkin from the drop. Ryota suggests returning for more carrots, not wanting to witness Emily's unsettling side again. But along the way, they encounter another swarm of beetles. They frighten Emily, and she goes berserk at the sight of them. Ryota tells her that he'll handle it and starts shooting at the creatures, begging Emily not to lose control. Ryota defeats the beetles, and the pair tries to figure out how to carry all the massive pumpkins from Ryota's drops. When Emily suddenly starts behaving strangely again, wanting to kill more beetles, a sudden blast at the entrance sends Ryota flying along with the pumpkins. Eve emerges to collect her carrots for the day, and Emily offers up the backpack full of carrots, leaving Ryota feeling relieved. They trade in their pumpkins at the swallow's gratitude and return to retrieve the rest of their haul, only to find them half-eaten on the ground. Ryota speculates that a small animal got to them, but Emily suspects that the beetles are responsible. She smashes one of the ruined pumpkins, and a swarm of beetles emerges from inside it. So Emily starts to go into a frenzy. Terrified of what Emily might turn into, Ryota swiftly draws his gun and shoots at them until he runs out of bullets. He implores Emily to be patient and promises to eliminate all of them as he crushes them with his hands. Eventually, Ryota defeats all the beetles. Emily apologizes to Ryota for her outburst when suddenly Ryota hears multiple chimes, and they realize that the monsters dropped more bullets. At the swallow's gratitude, Urza explains that strays emerge if a drop is left unattended outside a dungeon. Ryota contemplates whether it's possible to provoke strays to spawn and kill them for more bullets. He's lost in thought as Urza tries to ask him out, but he just thanks her and hurries away. Ryota experiments by leaving a carrot outside and waits for a monster to spawn, but Eve shows up to eat the carrot. Ryota tries again, and a slime appears, so Ryota swiftly kills it. It drops more bullets, and Ryota is pleased that his experiment worked. He wonders what would happen if he attempted the same thing with the seeds from nahonium. At nahonium, regardless of what Ryota tries, the seeds simply vanish in his hands. He had hoped that because of his unique skill, something interesting would happen, so he becomes disheartened, making his way back when a skeleton suddenly appears, catching Ryota by surprise. Ryota grapples with the skeleton, and he manages to kick it out of the entrance. Ryota wonders if it might turn into a stray, but it simply vanishes. Back at the Swallow's Gratitude, Urza explains to Ryota that monsters disappear if they leave the dungeon, and that even within the dungeon, they can't enter different levels. Urza blushes as she tries to compliment Ryota, but he cuts her off and rushes away. He returns to nahonium and stands in front of the entrance to test a new idea. A skeleton approaches him, and Ryota launches it outside. He quickly shoots it before it disappears, and a mysterious voice tells him that he has acquired a freezing bullet. Ryota tests out the new bullet on a tree, encasing it in ice. At Telulu, Ryota demonstrates the freezing bullet on a slime, freezing it before Emily kills it. Emily asks him about it, and Ryota explains what it is, saying it's hard to obtain, so he can't use it often. Ryota and Emily are on a trail on the side of a mountain, and they come across two people arguing. A man asks Ryota to retrieve the cargo that had fallen off the cliff, but the woman warns against it, saying it's been left unattended so strays could spawn. She creates a fireball as she prepares to burn the cargo, but the man stops her, saying the perfume in the cargo is worth a fortune. They start to argue, and the old man tries to hit the woman, but he misses, leaving a dent in the wall. Ryota and Emily are surprised, but the woman explains that a monster called a feminine has just possessed the man. She explains that the monster uses a human body as a nursery to propagate. Ryota shoots at the monster, freeing the man, but he falls unconscious. The woman tells them to take the man and run, knowing more feminine will appear because of the cargo. She prepares to sacrifice herself so that they can have enough time to escape, saying it's their responsibility as the escort. Ryota remembers the time when a coworker made a mistake, and the boss laughed at his misfortune. Although Ryota wanted to help, his coworker thought it was his responsibility, so he wasn't able to do anything. Ryota is eager to aid the woman, so he deploys his freezing bullets to freeze the monsters. Emily swiftly shatters them with a single blow, and the woman expresses her gratitude for their rescue. Later that night, they examine Emily's stats, which have remarkably improved after defeating the feminine. She thanks Ryota, believing that good fortune will follow them as long as they stay together. However, Ryota feels he's the one benefiting from their partnership. They return to the dungeon and come across a rare monster. Ryota eliminates it, and it drops a necklace, which he suggests Emily wear. He reveals that it doubles item drops, allowing Emily to earn more money. Once she equips it, Emily takes out a group of bats, and they drop more items than usual. Back at their house, Ryota contemplates moving to a nicer place with their increased earnings. He acknowledges it will take time to save more money, but Emily advises him not to overwork himself. At the Swallow's Gratitude, Ryota attempts to sell bamboo shoots, but Urza finds them challenging to appraise. The girl approaches Ryota and asks for one shoot. She immediately slices it into pieces, tastes it, and praises its raw flavor. She expresses her desire to buy all of his shoots, and Ryota agrees. The girl pays 20,000 pylos for the bamboo shoots, surprising Ryota with the high price. Urza then reveals that the girl is an epicure named Eric Macy, known for valuing food she enjoys highly. She proposes an exclusive contract with Ryota, intending to sell his bamboo shoots as a branded product. Ryota agrees and signs the contract, partnering with Eric Macy. Returning to nahonium, Ryota spots a skeleton approaching a princess named Margaret. He is on the verge of assisting her, but her companions suddenly restrain the monster, enabling her to decapitate it. They store the head in a magic cart, and her companion informs Ryota that she used an air box. He explains that monsters in nahonium drop air, which they store in the box to sell. As it's made by Princess Margaret, it has become their top product. The companion mentions that the magic cart allows them to carry more air boxes, reducing the number of trips. Back at their house, Ryota discusses with Emily his desire to buy a magic cart but is unsure whether to purchase a cart or a house first due to the cost. Emily suggests going for the magic cart, believing it will help them save more money to eventually buy a new house. Ryota agrees, and they decide to buy the magic cart first. The next day, they encounter the young girl crying at the shop. She reveals that her father has yet to return, having gone on a trip to collect flowers. Emily knows the only place to find flowers is the arsenic dungeon, so they decide to investigate it. Inside the dungeon, they encounter monsters blocking their path. Ryota shoots at one, but the bullet bounces off, prompting Emily to take the lead. With her hammer, she swiftly eliminates the monsters, allowing them to proceed deeper into the dungeon. There, they find the shopkeeper lying on the ground. Ryota asks if he's okay, but it turns out he was merely sleeping. They try to wake him, and Emily slams her hammer on the ground, successfully rousing him. Ryota asks him why he's there, reminding him that his daughter is worried about him. The shopkeeper explains he's gathering parts for his new magic cart and needs light rocks. He points them to a flying rock, mentioning that light rocks are lighter than air, making it difficult for him to retrieve one. Ryota proposes that 2 people could handle the task together. He carries Emily, struggling with the weight of her hammer despite his S-rank strength. Emily swings at the flying rock, destroying it, and it drops a blue rose, precisely what the shopkeeper needs. Outside, the shopkeeper leaves the rose on the ground, waiting for it to turn into a stray. Emily knows it will become unattainable once it ascends to the sky, so the shopkeeper needs to grab it before that happens. The rose transforms into a light rock and immediately begins to ascend. The shopkeeper goes after it, but he fails to reach it. However, Ryota fires a freezing bullet, causing the rock to fall to the ground, allowing the shopkeeper to retrieve it. They return to the shop, where the shopkeeper finishes constructing his magic cart and insists they take it with them. Ryota hesitates to accept such an expensive gift, but the shopkeeper reminds him that he saved the town from the gorilla, deserving a reward. Ryota finally accepts it, and they use the cart to store bamboo shoots. When it reaches full capacity, Ryota takes it to Urza, but he finds her arguing with a man. The man demands more payment for his goods, claiming they are worth over 10,000 pylos, but Urza insists she can't pay more than 8,400. The man attempts to attack her, but Ryota freezes his arm, stopping him, as Urza doesn't lie about prices. Ryota removes the man's items from his cart and takes them to the counter. He puts the man's items into the cart, and it automatically calculates the selling price, displaying 8,400 pylos. The man accuses him of conspiring with Urza as he breaks the ice on his arm, ready to strike Ryota, but he easily stops the attack, pushing him away. Urza expresses gratitude to Ryota, saying that as an item trader, she wants people to feel comfortable bringing their goods to her, but she starts to feel overwhelmed and unable to manage it all alone. Ryota reassures her that it's alright to have some help, as she also helped him by purchasing his items, so he wants to protect her in return. In response, she surprises him with a kiss, causing him to blush, as Urza explains that it was a personal gesture from her and wants him to remember it. Ryota and Emily go back to Tululu, where they hunt bats to collect bamboo shoots. Ryota is delighted because with the magic cart, they can now earn 200,000 pylos in one trip, which is 10 times more than usual. They have enough money to buy a new house, so they return home and start packing their things. However, they begin to feel a bit melancholic, as they have had many memorable moments in their current place. Ultimately, they decide to keep the lease on that property so they can return anytime. The next day, we see them in their new house, and Emily prepares breakfast for them. Ryota is surprised to see Eve there and asks how she got in. Emily doesn't see it as a problem since she made plenty of food, and they all sit together, enjoying their time in the new house. Thanks for watching till the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the video on your screen for more amazing recapped videos like this.